welcome to one of our talks here at SL11B Community Celebration. We've been having talks all week. We're having community talks, meet the community, we're having meet the artists talks, we're having meet the designer talks. And this talk today is actually a meet the community talk, and I'm talking to the child avatar community. This is people who have decided that they wanted to play child avatars, and there's a huge range in the community as they fit into many other communities, isn't that? And I'm joined by Holly Danitz, by Matthew Querian, by Beatrix Muircastle, by Carleen Thistlemoon, and by Zada Gearbox. Zada, I think I ran into you when I visited one of the schools. Maybe I didn't, maybe I did. Yes, maybe I ran into you in Steelhead. I do, don't I? Okay, so what I want to do is talk about how it works as being part of different communities and how you identify as a child avatar community. Matthew's in voice. If others of you want to type comments in, I'm going to address my questions to Matthew to answer, but if the others of you would like to type things in, then I will read those things out. First of all, the child community, like childhood itself, covers quite a lot of years, doesn't it?
Yes. For a start, there's Toddly-Doos. That's a more recent thing with the introduction of mesh avatars, and they go down to 2 and possibly younger, and it goes all the way up to teens, even into the very start of adulthood. You'll find people still associating themselves with the child avatar community, so you do get a wide range of people.
And I've mentioned 3 different communities, but I guess I'm just touching the iceberg there, the tip of the iceberg, because there's the what we might call the realistic community, the family role play, where you have kids going to school, going to camp, and so forth. Then you have historical child avatars in places like Steelhead and New Babbage, who are playing, who tend to be urchins, and then you have the you have things like escapades. This is interesting. We've suddenly got a curtain around us. Thanks, Susan. Thank you. Holly, yes. What would you like to say? Madison has just said there's anthropomorphs too. So Holly goes to school, and she also does a medieval role play where she's a medieval page training to be a knight. That sounds really cool. Are there many children in that community? Yes, Beatrice. the talk here is in voice. Someone had better type that. That sounds very cool. People are typing as well, so yeah.
But yes, you mentioned there's the steampunk kids in Steelhead and New Babbage, but there's a lot of various communities. There's, as I say, there's the urchins, the steampunk kids, and there's the lost boys that tend to be the kind of boys that wander around by themselves. They don't want parents; they just do whatever they want. And then you've got the families, and that in itself tends to be split into two, with toddly doos and bigger kids tending to separate it out to themselves, and maybe even the teenagers keep to themselves as well, but they do enjoy a good solid family life as well. I'm sure that if you think of it, there is a community for it in Second Life.
That sounds great. And Beatrice was saying that she lives in the pirate world. What kind of world do you have in the pirate world, Beatrice?
Hi.
So you're in antiquity, and what do you do in antiquity? I see. Her father is a pirate and he trains her. So you talked about the Lost Boys, Matthew. Do they have any particular setting? Beatrice does a lot. She causes a lot of trouble, and fights.
Goonies never say die.
Yeah, I've heard this one. Goonies never say die.
I wouldn't say that the Lost Boys have a particular setting. It just tends to be a name that's given to the group of boys, because they don't particularly fit into any of the other major sub communities. They just go around, do whatever they like. They tend to hang out on a nice little island that is kind of set in the nuclear age when they were doing testing. It's a place called Sota Atoll, and it's a big Pacific Island type deal with ruined ships and a nuclear bunker on it. But no, they don't tend to go for the kind of thing that you'd associate with the Lost Boys from Peter Pan, say.
But yes, it shows that you can get them in all communities. I suppose there's probably even kids in the wastelands.
Yes, one of my friends, Flo, otherwise known as Flocker, she's a great artist. Draxter covered her recently, actually, in the Drax Files. She was heavily into the wastelands. She really enjoyed it. She tried to get me into it, but I just couldn't quite follow it. But she really enjoyed it, and I could see why.
Oh, it's a very friendly community, and has a very interesting relationship with, of all places, Caledon. Because Desmond Chang was the person who advised the guy who set it up, who and helped him get it going. So that's a really unexpected connection between dystopian wastelands and Victorian Caledon. So, gosh, people are coming in and saying interesting things, that there are children in Bloodlines, which is vampire play. There are kids in Parts of Gore too. That really does surprise me. And this is zombie apocalypse kids. It really, yeah. But quite a few of you seem to swap between communities as well. You have a toehold in several communities. Would you say that was pretty common? for Second Life kids?
Yes, I would have to say it's very common. I mean, for a start, I tend to be associated with a number of groups from the Lost Boys to the Goonies on Escapades,
Hi.
and the Urchins of New Babbage. In fact, I am the high chair, the high chair of the 13 and Below Club in New Babbage, which is entirely secret. And now that I've told you about it, I'm probably going to have to kill you.
Going to have to kill you, yeah, yeah. Don't worry. When I come to Babbage, I always bring cake for urchins.
Ah, I can see why you survived.
Yeah. And the Primgraph always brings Christmas gifts for the urchins of New Babbage, except they usually get stolen.
Well,
Usually
yes.
by
Urchins
the
in New
urchins.
Babbage too tend to have very nimble fingers.
Porquería.
So, can someone? I'd be interested to learn why you actually chose to become child avatars. I mean, I can see that it looks a whole lot of fun. And I have to say that as a Brit who never went to camp, I
Cállense.
find the idea of going to camp here in Second Life pretty cool. But maybe you can tell us your reasons.
Shut up.
Yes, you've mugged me several times, Zeta, I think. So if you can, maybe some of the people here, I'll read it out, can tell us why they've actually taken on child abbeys. Beatrice says, I do it because it's fun and I just don't feel comfortable as a grown-up. Holly is saying she's going to her first camp. Oh, Holly says, I was just watching a video you made for TV back in 2010. Yes, at the camp. That was a great video. Marion says, I'm in the fun category as well. Zeta says, I was an adult before I was a child in Babbage, and the urchins were just my favourite characters in Babbage. So when I made a new avatar, I became a kid. Sounds good to me. And Stormy says, because Second Life childhood is therapy for me. And Jared says, I'm fairly infantile in real life, so it's pretty natural for me to be a child online too. And Skylar says, I found Second Life looking for a place to be a kid again. Marion says, some do it to make for better childhoods than they had in First Life too. And Harlequin says, I do it because it helps me to feel adventurous. Cybercat says, it's a game I do in Second Life. Zeta says, a lot of the adult roleplay is a bit dark for my tastes. I'm all about keeping it light and fun. And Yuchi says, good point, Mari. That's one reason a certain pixie I know is here. Holly says, it's a chance for me to be able to express my feelings and stuff without having to worry about the responsibilities of being an adult. Pygar agrees with Holly's reasoning. Pretty soon, I think. David says, sorry, I'll just read David's and then you... David said, I became a child Avi. When I first came to Second Life, I wanted to have fun and didn't get involved in some activities that people do with adult Avis. And Zeta says you can get away with saying and doing the darndest things when you're a kid. And Beatrice says it's fun to say crazy kid stuff too. Go on, Matthew.
When I first joined Second Life, and I only recently realised that that was 9 years ago, when I first joined Second Life, I realised that you could make a child avatar, and in fact it's the first proper avatar that I actually set out to make. But unfortunately, I never quite made contact with the kid's community, so he lasted for a few days maybe, before I reverted to an adult form. eventually curiosity got the better of me, and I started searching the internet for any kind of proof that there is a child avatar community, and I found Loki's blog, in which he showed the things that he would do on Escapades and in New Babbage, and that was it. I was hooked. I decided I'm going to close my previous avatar.
Our vast virus
He's not so much
database
closed
has
as
been
he's
updated.
sleeping. He turns up whenever I feel the need that I need to be an adult in Second Life. But ever since, he has been my alt, and Matthew Currian has been my main, and I've not looked back since.
Excellent. Mike says that I got bored when I was an adult, so I became a kid. Holly says I never had a mum growing up, and I got 2 here, and they are wonderful. Carlin says, for me it's a little bit of everything. It's a nice relaxation after being an adult in real life with the stress for work. It gives me an outlet to be the way I feel inside. It's fun and adventurous, and I don't have the sort of childhood that I wish, so it's kind of a way to make up for what I missed. Okay, Marion says, this is my main. I started as an adult but grew down a month later and got into a Second Life family. Another question to you all. Yay. How important to you is being part of a family? And that's, not even if you're not doing the straight family role play, do you still welcome the opportunity to have family around you?
I'm not particularly in a family. I'm sure I've said it before. But my friend Jeter, he's over in the stands, he has a family, and I can see that it means a great deal to him to have a family, to have people that he can rely on, he can be comfortable with. I mean, he's a very shy person, which is really quite an endearing thing. So he does need that stability, and he does enjoy his family. And I've got to admit, I am slightly jealous. Only a little bit, though.
Okay. Zada says, I consider having the other child Abby's in Babbage and Stillhead to be my SL family. Pygar says, I love my sisters a lot and I miss my SL parents. Oh, I'm sorry, Pygar. Did they go away? David says, I've been in the same Second Life family for over 6 years. Beatrice says, I get close to people and I adopt them. Harlequins says she's a loner and she's never had a family. Carlin says, for me it's very important, just like in real life it's a place to belong to and support when you need it. Stormy says, my friends are my family. I don't have or need parents. I just need to surround myself with people who I resonate with. Marion says, I really like having a family. While I don't have parents in Second Life right now, I do have my siblings and they're an important part of my role play and my Second Life experience. Mike says, I love being part of a family. I have a single mummy and that is fine. Harlequin says, I'm jealous of those with families too. Oh, Pygar, so they've left Second Life. I'm so sorry. Carlin says, my real life grandmother always said, your friends are the family you choose. Madison says, Matty's an adopted Rosati whether he likes it or not. Holly says, I've been here for 3 years and 2.5 of them I didn't have a family. But the last 6 months when I have a family have been great because we are just like a proper family and I'm their little girl and they might just be pixels but the feelings are real. Wherein shouts out the randoms. Matthew shouts out the random. Who are the randoms?
That would be David's family. They have a wonderful sim. I'm quite jealous of the name actually. Random. They have a whole bunch of attractions on there. But they're basically the oldest family that I know in Second Life, so you've got to give them respect.
Marianne says, I might add to that too, as I consider the Bay City folks also to be it takes a family. Sorry, it takes a village sort of family for me as well, I suppose. They do tend to roleplay lightly with me. Pygar agrees about the Bay City folks. And then he says, but I have the extended Camp Hardknock family too. And Joy says it's so true, Carly. In real life, you get what you get. You get what you get. In Second Life, you get to choose who becomes your family. And David says the random is my family. Mary is Rosebud as far as the family name goes. So, Camp Hardknock. Do you all go to Camp Hardknock?
I don't think everyone up on the stage goes to Camp Hardknock, but I know that we've got a decent cadre of campers here today. Holly, to my right, is going for her first camp this year, and Marianne is one of the first ever Camp Hardknock campers, I believe.
Jared says, I tend to find half-hearted family role players. They start out seeming interested in it, then I end up alone again. As much as I love family interaction, I'm probably going to have to stick to being a wanderer. Mari says, this will be my 15th or so. Holly is so excited. Stormy says she'd be asked to leave because she's trouble. And Holly says, I just watched you on TV, Mari. Colin says, I don't know about it. And Zeta says, that's why we love you, Stormy. And Pygar grins at her. And Stormy says, I love you guys too. So you don't know about the Hardknock camp? Which is like a sort of summer school camp, isn't it? It's an American phenomenon, camps by and large, isn't it, Matthew?
Yeah, we don't really get it over here in the UK. Certainly, they weren't a part of the curriculum or anything when I was in school, which seems quite a while ago now, really. But no, we don't really get them in the UK, so it's quite an experience to go for the first time this time last year. I went to the camp and I wasn't allowed to leave this place for a good 7 days. And you know what? By the end of the first day, I didn't want to leave. In fact, I was rather sad when on the 8th day, we all formed the Purple Tears Relay for Life team and went off to relay in the Relay for Life. Because, I mean, okay, so we're going for charity, but I've just spent 7 days in the most magical place in Second Life, and I've just been asked to leave. It was really quite sad. But I'm glad I did it, and that's why I'm going again this year.
Mari says you have that first, I have to be here for a week? Are you kidding me? And then at the end it's like, heck no, we won't go. I think actually probably with the summer camp, the Relay for Life is probably the best possible way of ending it, because you go off and you do something exciting and different in itself. And important. And Purple Tears are a very formidable relay team. Do you get
that's
to
one of
build
the
your
top
camp?
rated, I believe.
Do you get to build your own camp, the Purple Tears?
I'm not entirely sure how that works. I think Marianne would have more experience with it. So I defer to her.
We're talking about the Purple Tears and Relay for Life being the event that ends the summer camp. And I was asking if you get to build the Purple Tears camp on the campsite. Okay, Holly's saying that. Let me read some of the comments. Holly's saying, I am so excited about it. And some of my friends are going, I'm kind of a bit worried about having to stay there the whole time because I might get homesick. And then someone says, about 4 years ago, there was a wonderful kids sim called Jack's Place, which hosted a 2-week summer camp, which hosted daily activities and competitions and felt like a real camp. In real life, I never experienced summer camp, and I really enjoyed the experience. In fact, at the end of the 2 weeks, I literally cried. And Colin says, in Willowdale, we're having a summer school at Hope Harbour that's teaching us drawing and theatre. I think the hardest part is all the real-life interruptions that keep us from really immersing in all the things we could do. I know I miss a lot of events and activities that I get bummed out hearing about later. Colin, I don't think you should use that word, darling. But that's the way real life works. Okay, so Marianne has come back to my earlier question about who builds the camp and says that it's built by Miss Jill and Gats Gilman, who are the camp directors. And of course, they're wonderful builders and they build fantastic camp hard knocks every time. Beatrice hasn't heard about the Purple Tears. Purple Tears is a Relay for Life team, which is entirely kids. And Marion says we do tend to bring our own tents and bedrolls at times. Alaska is pointing to his toddler friend Mouse Play. Perhaps you could best toddler make her around. Do you want to come up on stage and show off your toddlers? One of the things I'm finding hard at the moment is not being able to tell my real life friends and work colleagues about how great a time I'm going to have because they won't understand, says Holly. I know, but ooh, slightly naughty word. Do you know the Flanders and Swan song? It's a Flanders and Swan song called Peepo Belly Bum Draws, which I probably shouldn't have told you about, but would you like the YouTube link? See if I can find it.
Welcome to the stage, Mousy.
Hello, Mousy. So, you're a very young avatar. Okay, one thing I wanted to talk about in practical terms is how liberating has mesh been for you all?
For some, I would have to say that it's actually helped them get closer to the identity that they see when they look at their avatar, as opposed to the identity given out by the avatar that SL has restricted them to. Because with at least with one of the mesh, bodies, they've reduced some of the features in the standard Second Life avatar that you just can't get rid of when you're at that stage. For example, Pygar, he's based on the male shape, so he has much wider shoulders and the saw blades of death, which are his shoulder blades. And for people such as me with the female-based avatar, which is closer to the younger male shape, if you're not very careful with the sliders, you can end up, let's say, top heavy, whereas boys tend to not be top heavy. So with the mesh avatars, that is entirely eliminated, and you get a much more realistic shape and musculature, which helps people get more into the childhood frame of mind. And as a result, they tend to enjoy their lives better, even just having this simple mesh body.
So, do you tend to keep a non-mesh head? Because, of course, that has all sorts of... wearing a mesh head means you lose lip sync and all sorts of things.
Yes, most people who use the mesh bodies do tend to keep an avatar face, because, as you point out, you lose the lip sync stuff. Not that the lip sync stuff is particularly used in the child community. Most people communicate through voice and gesture spam. But the avatar face is much more customizable as well, and it's much more forgiving of going for more youthful appearances than, say, the stock avatar torsos. So yeah, it tends to be that you keep the avatar head. And you'll find that the hairs on sale tend to fit better on the avatar head anyway.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to pick up on some of the comments I've been getting in chat here. Okay, when people responding to the idea of mesh. Mari says mesh has been a blessing and a curse. It's hard to find good clothing sometimes that works well for kids, but it really helps to clean up a lot of the issues one has when they shrink down the standard SL avatar. David says, as I never wear shoes, I find a lot of improvement on the mesh feet. Pygar says, one of the reasons I wear wings.
I think that's because of the shoulder blades of death I mentioned.
Right. Now, Mouse is wearing a Topsy Pop Tot Baby avatar, which is totally mesh. Presumably, that means that when you yell and cry, your lips don't move. Mari says that when she finds well-fitting mesh clothing, she wears it till there's mesh holes in it. Mercy says this has been my issue, getting hair to fit, since my head is mesh. How does your head size compare with petites? I imagine you're much bigger and can't use petite hair. And Holly is saying, I don't wear any layer clothes anymore. It just feels naked. It's just your skin painted. And Carlin says, mesh has been a mixture of wonderful and frustrating. There are so many things I love that I can't wear. It seems that, like children's mesh, is predominantly made for toddly-do, which goes up to about age 7. Then it's predominantly adult clothing, leaving little room for preteens and teenagers. I started making my own clothing because I was upset by the lack of things available and lack of things appropriate for my age. But trying to find mesh versions of them is so restricted, finding the clothing I need for the pieces I've textured. And Stormy says, sometimes I see mesh clothes and I'm like, oh, mesh! sometimes I see how it moves and I'm like, ugh, mesh. Physia says, not to be a buzzkill, but wasn't the purpose of this event to discuss child avatars in Second Life and their experiences? Well, we're talking about a lot of things around this topic. And yes, clothing is an experience, and finding a way to look properly like a child too.
Welcome back.
So, but let's move back. Let's move on from the avatar shape. And you've talked about families. Let's talk a bit about the kind of adventures that you have and the sort of things that child avatars can get up to. And then I'm going to ask a question about... I'd also like... Well, okay, let's talk about the kind of experiences you have as a child Avi. Do you find... There has been a lot of hostility to child Avis in the past. Do you find that that has changed at all, or do you still have trouble with being a child Avi?
I wouldn't say that there has been as much hostility towards child avatars as there has been historically, but it certainly still exists. In fact, even here at the expo, we've had me, Jeter, and a few others were wandering around looking at the pod stations, and two men decided that we were munchkins, so they called us munchkins. It's not so much that we get kicked out of places these days or banned. Most places we can go and it's quite happy, or we can talk to the owners and they'll understand that it's an entirely innocent thing, and they'll quite happily change the rules these days. I would have to say that the community's impressions of children is greatly changed. I mean, certainly Marianne recently made an interesting comment about how at the 5th birthday, I think it was the 5th birthday, there was a bit of controversy about having child avatars even exhibiting at the birthday, and here we are. We've got countless exhibits from children here at the celebration, and the people running the entire thing are children. I mean, Marianne, she's one of the top level people running birthday, and Pygar, he's been putting in a lot of work too. The cake stage was made by Loki Elliott of Escapades fame. So yeah, I'd have to say that we've definitely got a much friendlier environment these days.
In fact, Pygar built this area where we're sitting. The auditorium is Pygar's creation.
Oh, nicely done, Pygar.
It's lovely. I've been really enjoying doing talks here. It's a very friendly environment. Now, I would say, I remember, yes, I know that I think kids were banned for a time from SL11B, but that was the first time I came across child Avis. We had a TARDIS, a Doctor Who star, well, not a Doctor Who star TARDIS, but a TARDIS parked outside the Prim Perfect build, because we'd just recently done an article about an ideal place to live being a TARDIS in the magazine, and one of the people to go up in it was M. Linden, who was just taking over as CEO. You could click on the back wall and be teleported to the main TARDIS. And I also ran across a group of 5 boys and was talking to them about them going around, and I said, do you want to explore a TARDIS? And they were like, ooh, cool, yes, can we? And so I took them for a trip up to the TARDIS, and and they all had a huge time. And I thought, this is so great. You can actually explore Second Life in a wholly different way and just be honestly cool. Wow, this is fantastic, without being self-conscious about it.
Yeah, you can quite happily. I've completely forgotten the word for it now. You can exclaim the childhood kind of wonder at the things you see. I mean, I've gone round the birthday here, and it's like, wow, I must see that again. I will come back and I will see it again because it is awesome, and I will bring ice cream. Everything's better with ice cream.
Everything is indeed better with ice cream. Oh, I haven't got ice cream, but I have got something that I ought to put out, actually. Give me just a minute, kids. There we go. Cake. Sorry, I should have set this out earlier. And I know Piper's got some cakes too.
Children and sugar.
Get hyperactive.
You live by the cake, you die by the cake.
There. I'll just lift it a bit so it's out of range of Mouse. Mouse is a bit young for this kind of cake. So I'm just going to read over some of the chat things that have come up while Matthew and I have been talking. Let me just scroll down. Okay, Holly says she's honestly not experienced the sort of anti-child prejudice in over 3 years. Beatrice says, yes, I think it's changed, but there are still creepy people and trolls. Pygar says, not as much, but it's still out there. Marion says, it definitely has changed, and then says about not being allowed at 5LB. Mihishio says, I disagree. I get many pervs at most places, and some places are marked G, but I'm not allowed for my look or being short. Ginger Lorica says, I love it when child abbeys visit the place I hang out at. They can be lots of fun, and I love hanging them some drawings to do and see them sitting all quietly on the floor colouring in, which I think is quite an achievement with Second Life kids. Satu says, I hear of it, but I've hardly seen it firsthand. Pygar says, yeah, the disallowing short abbeys is getting old. And Ginger hands out some drawings for people to do. Marion says that she's... Zada says, I once hosted an ice cream social in Serif City, and an adult avatar showed up and was really horrible to all of us and called us all perverts. Then said she wouldn't come back as long as Serif continued allowing children. That was within the last year. Yeah, I caught some of that. I basically, I caught some of that. Okay, Marion says she's one of the co-leads. Pygar built the auditorium. Colin says, I think things have gotten easier. When the teen version of SL closed, it was everywhere you went. No child avatars and getting warned or kicked out, but now it's much more accepting. The biggest problem I have is having this long list of blocked individuals who think I want to do something that's not only illegal, but completely opposite to what I want to experience here. Holly says the only places I've had problems are places I wouldn't want to be anyway, because they are where they do dull stuff. Pygar, especially when they consider short and normal human height of 5.5 feet, says Satu. Harlequin says, I designed the SL11B logo and I play a kid 75% of the time. And Harlequin, you let me have the fonts so that I could do all sorts of wonderful things with them. And thank you so much with the videos as well.
Yeah, you did wonderful
And
work on the logo. It's wonderful.
yeah, it's a great logo.
It's a pleasure to do it.
And Visia says she would specifically like to ask, if she may, about specific groups like Giggles Beach.
You can ask,
What?
but that kind of
I-
place is not a kind of place that I would like to talk about. Yes, let's entirely skip that.
Okay. So people are expressing admiration for the auditorium, and I'm scrolling down. And Marianne says they respectfully declined our involvement in SL11B, then did allow us, but with a lot of restrictions on what we could show. Huge change from that, absolutely. Mercy says, as a teacher at NCI, I teach as a child because I want the new people coming in to realise that there are many possibilities in Second Life. Satu says, to me, that's the main thing for me to be a kid in Second Life. And David says, sometimes I find kids who don't like kid avatars, I just ignore them. Satu says, it's being able to just have fun and not feel like it's out of place. And Holly, I think, has seen the cakes, or is just thinking about ice cream. Mercy says, I've had 2 students leave because I was a child, but most ask then laugh, and 4 are now kids. Stormy, you live by the cake, you die by the cake. Ooh, cake, thank you. Right. So you've all got pictures to draw on now. Which says, in the 6 years I've been in Second Life as a kid avatar, I've only experienced hostility twice, and I explore a lot. And
He really does explore as well. He used to run a museum called the Museum of Prim Arts. It was a wonderful thing. He would curate various artistic pieces that he's collected from his travels, and he would display them. Unfortunately, it's not around these days, and maybe now that he's got a new computer, he can bring it back.
yeah, we're going to drop the subject of Giggles Beach entirely. We're not here to talk about that. Right, so Rachel says, some of my favourite people in Second Life are kids. It's fun to share in their excitement of life as a kid. And Carlene says, you don't need to... Okay, so... Right, any questions for anyone? Because we ought to wrap up fairly soon. We're coming to the end of this conversation. One thing to note, in real life, my grandchildren argue over who Granny will be modelled after today. Oh, I think that's a lovely idea, Mousy. And Zada's personality is modelled after my real life nieces. Beatrice says most people in our pirate group love us kids. Mousy says with 27 grandkids, I'll never run out of inspiration. Pygar says my personality is an aspect of myself.
Oh my god.
Holly says my personality is me, just a lot younger, but I'm still me. I'm not a character. Stormy says I just act like I do real life, minus the dynamite thing. Don't ask. Okay, we won't ask. Beatrice says my 8-year-old loves giving me ideas. She's like, have Beatrice do this. Satu says, hey, yes, I'm just kind of me too. Stormy wants big boons, not here. Harlequin says, I'm just me younger, unless I'm in a non-human form. Stormy is getting rather alarming. So, any more questions? I'm getting extremely dry. Marcy has brought something up. It seems that quite a few of you actually share your kid avatars with people in real life, that you let people know what you're doing.
I certainly don't hide my avatar. Even my mother knows. Unfortunately, real life, not so good at the moment. I'm sure you're aware of how much they're politicising over employment here in the UK. So yes, living with mother at the moment, and she she actually comes over and has a sneak peek at what I'm doing in Second Life. I think if she were a little bit more computer savvy, she'd be in Second Life herself as a child, and I can see why. I mean, it's a magical experience. You get to relive what most people think are the best years of your life, or you can change something about your life. For example, I've even got twin alts, so if ever I feel like I wanted to have a familial brother, I mean, I've got a kind of a brother in Second Life, the kind of close friend you call a brother. But if ever I want to feel like I've got a brother, I've got my twin alts, who, well, they're both played by me, but they're brothers, and I can just do something a little bit different to see what life would have been like. Not that I regret my current life.
That's really interesting. Well, Mercy says, I came to Second Life because I lost the ability to do my real life crafting. SL gave me a place to continue creating, but I didn't like the other parts of Second Life, so being a child gave me the best of both worlds. Zeda says, I would love my real life sister to come in and play with me. And David says, my real life mum is a kid Avi in Second Life. Colin says, real life though, I only have 3 people who've been in Second Life and only one who actually liked it enough to stay. And Butch says, there's a brilliant feature-length documentary from 2010 which was screened at the Sundance Film Festival, which you can watch on YouTube, entitled Life 2.0, and which profiles 4 different avatars for Second Life. One avatar profiled is a man who began as a girl avatar and then became a boy avatar. It's quite interesting. Okay. but you're front and center in designing worlds all the time, Marianne. So much so that we even let you do the call-out lines at the end.
Uh-huh.
There will be a link to this that you can share with real-life friends, yes. Pet is recording it at the moment. I'll give the link to Matthew when we have a link for it, and he can pass it around the kid community.